876. Mhm. Okay, so maybe I should always get started. Okay, so all of you, what's up? Like, I hope you all are fine. And today is the day 7 of the Python games, and we are on we're developing a ongoing project that is the Ball of the Boss game. We have spent nearly 1 day on it. That the last session we continued. There are 2 sessions, and we're just about to end the game, and we're gonna discuss some important points today, and we're gonna add them into the code. So hope you all are doing fine, and let's get started. So today we're gonna be continuing game, and yeah, so let me show you what our game looks like right now. If I run this, last session we leaved it up here. The player is blinking. You can't stop blinking, but still it's appearing and disappearing again in a fraction of a second, and it's not even moving. I'm pressing my key presses, and there are some more problems that we're gonna handle in this session, and those are some important ones, so make sure you just uh, keep note of them. Okay, so first of all, let us fix this problem in which this thing is blinking again and again. So I'll just tell you why this thing is happening. This is happening just because this thing is happening because we have in the main game loop right now we have the pygame.display.update statement 2 times. That is at the end and the between after we code this my ball.draw. Now what this function is doing is it's just putting the ball on the screen, or let's say a black circle. Basically we see it as a ball. The code sees it as a circle. So doesn't really matter because the shape is the same. Now what is happening right here is that this update statement is constantly updating the screen. That is, it's just going through the while loop 100,000 times in a minute or also in a second. I have no idea, and that's really fast. And that is why the ball is disappearing and appearing many times. Now, if I just erase one of these statements, this one, what will happen? Let's see what happens. Oh, there are, yeah, this one. One second. Okay. Now, if I remove that statement and run this, the ball is not being drawn on the screen because that thing is not updated. Now, this is the situation when we remove that display statement. Okay. And if I add that to the code again, pygame.display.update, and if I remove this particular statement at the end of the loop, let's see what happens. Good. Now the ball is stable and it isn't disappearing or reappearing again and again. So this was the solution to our problem. And one thing to make note of is in each and every project, there are gonna be a lot of errors. So don't lose hope or don't give up on these small bugs. These things are very small. You need not worry about them. Just go ahead, explore the code, use the trial and error method, and you'll get the solution because there's a problem to every there's a solution to every problem. Now, if we go ahead, where we just made the player or the big ball the class of that particular object, or let's say the player, we define some functions. The init function is like necessary for each and every class we make. Not really if you're making some other kind of game or something. There is a importance of that function, by the way. Okay. Next is draw function that just draws the ball on the screen. Next is the check function that tracks the keyboard movements or the arrow movements, and this just checks like is it moving, is it being pressed or not. Now this function, that is the check change function, it is constantly updating the x and the y values of the ball. That makes the ball moving because each and every second the ball is being drawn on the screen. And this is what happens. Now the show x and show y functions, they'll come into the use when we write the is collision or the collision function that we'll see later. And yeah, that's all about it. And now we've just defined this function. Why not use them? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna write my ball dot check. Okay, so it will check for the keyboard movements, and we just don't want it to check. We want it to constantly update it. So maybe I'll just write my ball dot check change, and you can just run this function. Keyboard movements. No, nothing's happening. After, okay. Let me. Oh, what? We didn't recognize what just happened. Let me run it again. Now, after the game starts, after it's loaded. Now, if I press the keyboard movements, oh my gosh, that is up. Okay, so first, there are a few problems with this thing. Also, let me just note them for you. Um, First things first, the ball is getting out of the window. We don't want the ball to get out of the window, and we don't want it to. Of course, we don't really want it to move out of the window. And if I press a key and I press another key, it is not tracking it. Why? Because it's not updating it. It's just not updating it. Like it's just not updating it. What do we say? Constantly. Yeah, I got the word. It's not really updating it constantly. Now, if I just put these two functions and a display update statement, and after that, I put another display update statement, just like so, and I run this. And if I press the keys, just like so, now it's not even moving. Why is that? I'll tell you right now. Okay. So what is happening is first we're drawing the ball on the screen, then we're checking for a change if there's any keyword movement or any change like that. And then we're going with the check with the update statement. So that's really updating it all the time. And then we're going and checking the change for the keyboard movements. Where so what we can do here is we can take this out of here, place it under this like so, and yeah, do that. Okay, what we're doing here is we're just changing the state of the pygame display and check change functions. So as you can see, nothing is happening. Nothing is happening if I just press the keyboard, and that is what is called miss function. Okay, now what is this? Before we go on any further, let me just tell you what is happening. There are two functions about the first pygame.display.update statement, and there's one function below it. And there are two display update statements. Let me just remove one of them. Now, if I just copy this and paste it to make it three functions and then run it, then it'll constantly update. At least it will really. What is going on? Let me just remove this because we don't need that. Now, sorry, I just maybe one stop and rerun. Okay, now it's running. Now, if I just press the keyboard, it is actually not tracking. Yeah, it's tracking now. Okay, so now we need to maintain a balance between the functions and the pygame.display.update statements. Okay, so therefore we need two functions above one, and then we need two functions. So that is basically how it goes, right? Okay, so let's fix why is going out of the window first, and then we'll just go on and fix the other error, that is it's not tracking the keyboard movements. Okay, so first we need to define now how will that be. So what is happening, okay, here it's going out of the window because the y coordinate of the ball is just going out of the window, and the y coordinate, that is the integer, it's just increasing because we define the check function in which it increases every two, like by every two numbers, or let's say it increases for every keyboard or direction key we press, and that is why it's like going out of the window. Now what we need to do is whenever it touches the, so first our window is of the pixel size 900. So if I'm basically just make sure that it doesn't go out of the window. Now how do I make sure that, how do I make that sure, sorry. Now firstly, when the ball, that is the player's ball, goes out of the window, what we need to do is we need it to be stable. If the x coordinate is out of the window, we need, if the y coordinate is more, the value of the y coordinate is more than the value of the game window, then it will go out of the window, right? Because it will not be up, like we can't see it because it's out of the window. And it's greater than the y value of the window, that is why it's getting out of it. Now just you'll not understand this in one go, but as you practice it you'll surely understand it. So what is happening is, just see these this function, that is don't leave this the name of the function, then self dot check. Now what is happening is it's checking it, it's checking this, the what we define self dot check as the values of the x and y. It's giving out the values of x and y, like, yeah, the x and y value value is just 890, because 900 will be totally out of the window. That is 890 is like 10 pixels ahead of the window. Okay, let's try and do this. What will happen here, let me just make sure that I explain this to you again. If it's greater, then you must have learned if statements in the Python camp, or even if you don't, you can just see it by, because Python is like English. If the x value, um, you don't want it to be lesser than 10, but if it's less than 10, then surely you go out of the window. With the x values on the left side of the window, the y values on the upper side, and the y value on the bottom side. Now let's code it so you know what's happening. Here we go. Now this is the table, just to make sure. We'll just say def don't underscore leave for the data. We can say this. Now we want to check each and every time. We want the values to be tracked. So that's correct. Now let's start with the statement. If self dot sc is yeah, sc is less than or equal to, then we want this thing to be 10, better than 10. So then self dot sc x equals to 10. Now we can do this same the same the same code, we just type or the right side of the window, that is 90. Now if your window size is something like other, go ahead, put in different values, run, check if it's working, and yeah, that way you just find the perfect value in Zoom. Okay, now I have chosen this value as 80. If the window thing, the number of pixels of the window differs, then you might go with some other value. L dot sp x equals to 890. Okay, I can just copy these two and make sure they go the same for the y values. Now, instead of this, we can just change it to y. Okay, we can just enter it y and y. Here we go, y. Now, as you can see, we've defined all the values. Now, this is the function that is just gonna check if the player is out of the row. We have to apply this function, and that'll solve our problem for Python display update thing too. So basically, what we can do is we can draw the ball, we can check the ball, these are the two functions, draw and check. Then we can give a Python display update statement. We can remove this check change statements, and we can paste the check change below it. And next, we can give another function that we just wrote, that is Python dot what do we write? Python dot my ball dot don't play, right? Don't play. And after this, we can give another Python dot display dot update statement. Whatever we define that 890. If it's greater than 890, then we want it to be 890 so that this thing doesn't leave the window. This freaking thing doesn't leave the window. And same with the X and Y coordinates. If I just move it around, it isn't leaving the window. If I check the upper right corner, it isn't leaving the window. And if I check the left corner, like so, it isn't leaving the window. So well, just make sure that the call doesn't leave the window. And right now, you just solve another problem. That is, it's tracking your keyboard movements, just like so. What we can do is we can move it around freely, just like so. Go ahead, play with that, and good, like really good. Yeah. Okay. Congratulations. You just make sure that everything's working fine. Now, what are we missing in the game is the balls that are the small ones, and um, the small ones are just missing the small ones. And if you see, there's nothing the user can see. Like the user doesn't know what to do. So when he just opens the game, he sees some balls and some player ball. Now we have to give the instructions to the user, like use the arrow keys, collect all the balls or something like that. And here comes the text. I taught text to you all in the previous sessions, and this is where our second function comes into play. That is the show function, my font, and we just learned this in the previous lessons. So what we can do is just get a look at the code. First we just define the my font object, then we just create it with the render function, and then finally we build it onto the screen. Now make sure this function is out of any classes. That is, it doesn't have any indentation. If it has, then this means that it is inside this big vocal class, whatever it is. And make sure I just make sure that this is out. Just make sure it doesn't have any indentation, else you'll. So my font equals to, in the previous session I just have showed you download any font from Google Fonts, and I just have a TTF file right here. So we can just say pygame.font .ttf, Orbitron font, Orbitron. I remember the name of this thing. And then the font size. Right now I'm gonna keep it something like this. Next is the text, that is my font dot render. Now here I'll give it some text. I'll say collect the balls. I know this is kind of lame, but you can just go ahead, write your own text, give your instructions to the user. That text will be displayed at the top of your window. So I'll just write use the arrow keys. Just give an exclamation mark. Next comes true, that is the visibility. And after this true thing, here comes the color that is black in this case. I can just say red because let's try to go ahead with red color. Let's see what happens. Next is we are gonna blit, not show, but screen dot blit. What we're gonna blit is the text that we just made, and the coordinates are the inside brackets. Just make sure they are inside brackets. Here we'll go with maybe 40 and 30. Okay. Now is there? Oh, I'm just giving on instead of this. Now, instead of the main game loop, we want the show function. Now, why inside the main game loop is because we want it to, we want it to be seen by the user at any point of the game, no matter if the user is playing, if it's he or she is not playing. If he or she has exited the game, then we don't want it to show, and they'll be checked by this piece of code right here if the user has quitted the game. Now, what we can do is we can just call the function on the screen show function. Now, if I run this, make sure everything's correct. You can see the text on here. Collect the balls, use the arrow keys. You can just make sure it is according to you. You can just change the text, change the color, make the font size of it bigger or smaller. If we're choosing the window size of 900, then this is the best way. You can just also um, make it to be like in any other place. It's not compulsory for it to be at the top. It can be on the bottom, on the sides, anywhere you want it to be. And yeah, that's all. Now, after we have completed the two main vital functions that were really important for the game, make sure you just okay, this is the code for the same, and this is the code for the show function. Adding the small balls. Okay, we have completed everything with the user or the big ball, and what we want is we want the small balls. We want them at random places that we're gonna learn today. We're gonna show the balls at random places today. Are we? I don't know. Mm. Yeah. So now, if you remember, we created some lists right here: red balls, green balls, orange balls, pink balls, blue balls, gray balls. Now these lists are gonna be filled today, so make sure you just note each and every piece of code I write here. Okay, then that'll be yeah. So now what we're gonna do is we're basically gonna learn about the random module, adding the small balls. Now each and every time you refresh the game or you play that game again, you exit the game and you rerun the game, we want the balls to appear at a new location every time you restart, or let's say refresh the game, or let's say you run the game. We want each and every small ball of any color to be at a random place. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, random function, a random module contains like maybe 40 to 50 functions, but today I'm gonna just show you some of the most important ones. The random function. Now, this will be very helpful in the upcoming games because random is a module that is used in Python and in Python. So right now, before you do anything with random, so random is an inbuilt module for it. You don't need to download it as for Pygame. You needed to download Pygame, okay? So you can just say import random and it will import random. Now let's do some experiment kind of things with random. So what we're gonna do is we can say value, or rather say v equals to random dot random. Now what this thing will do is it'll pick a random value from zero, between 0 and 1, and that will be a float value, a float data type that is decimals. So you must have learned about float data types because they're very important in Python as. Now we can just say print v. So, and if we run this, we can see a random decimal, or let's say float rather, value being printed on the screen. Now, if I run this again, it'll print a different number each and every time I reload it, I refresh it, and that'll be a unique number until all the numbers are done. Then you'll have to pick the same number. If what I'm confused here, no problem. Now this function will make it simple. This function will pick any float value between 0 and 1, and that can be totally random up to how many decimal places? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay. 16 decimal places. I don't know if random will update this function in the future. I don't know what will happen, but as of now, it gives a decimal, or let's say a float value, float data type between 0 and 1, where 0 is inclusive and 1 is not inclusive. That is, you can get 0 but you can't get 1. Now the random dot uniform value. Now this was of between 0 and 1. Now what if I want customized numbers? Okay, this is random dot uniform. Now here, this is a function that requires two values inside of it, the starting value and the ending value, and this function will pick a random float value and like make sure it's float. Okay, if I say I want a number between 10 and 100, and let's say I run this, and it'll give me a random value between 10 and 100. As you can see, this value differs every time. So that is an important function of random dot uniform. I don't know why it is random dot uniform, but now what happens is you give random dot uniform and you give two values. Now it will choose a random float value, or let's say a float number, not a number but a value rather, between the two, the values that you just gave into the function. Now enough of float numbers. Now let's talk something about integers, what we're gonna do of integers now. Now the function that comes into use is random.rand int, and what we can do is we have to give two values between. So let's say we equals random dot rand int, and let's say I give two values, that is 10, not 10, let's say 100 and 200. Now this function will pick a random integer value between 100 and 200. Each time I refresh it, it gives me a new value, as you can see. Now it will be between the values and inclusive of 100. Okay, that is about rand int function. We have covered three functions, that is the random.random, the random.uniform, and the random.rand int. Next is the random.choice. Now here there is a list that comes into use. Now you must have learned about lists in the Python thing, yeah, Python camp. Now list is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now just ignore this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Now list is something that is inside the square brackets and it has a lot of values. And how do we make a random take out any random value out of that list? So that is where random choice function can be used. Now let's make a simple program based on the random choice function. Let's say G equals a list of strings that is hi. Let's say it's hi. It is hello. These are the greetings. Whenever you meet a new person, you say hi, hello. What else? Hey. You can just say hey. No. Hey. You can say hola. And we can say what else? Let me see. Hello, hi, hey, howdy. Okay. another value howdy. Good. Now this is a list which is a list of strings. It has five elements inside of it. That is hi, hello, hey, hola, and howdy. Now what we can make out of it is we want random to take out any random value between, like, inside of this list. Out of the five, we want it to get any random value, like maybe hello, or you'll see that once you write the code. V equals random dot choice, and inside we give G, that is the list. Now we can say print. Now we can say V plus, you can give a string, comma, you can give a name. Right now I'll just say sure, a question or name, and give exclamation mark. Let's run this. Hi. Right now, what happened is it just picked a random value out of the thing, and hi was the one which was picked. Hello. Okay, hi. This is how you can just make a simple program out of that function. Howdy, hi, hey, hey, hola. Now the odds of each of the values are 1 upon 5. As we all know, there are 5 total elements, and we just want it to pick one of them, and that is the main thing. Okay, now what if I want to change the odds of a value getting, let's say, a value being chosen? So here comes the random choices function, where we can, like, the user can say, like, I want this, the odds of getting this particular thing to be some value, some value, some value. Now here in the code you can see the example as the colors that are red, black, and green, and the random dot choices function on the colors. Next we have given a parameter, not a parameter, let's say argument, and we have defined the weights inside of a list. Now there are 3 elements in the colors thing, and there are 3 elements in the weight, and the k equals some value. You can give it whatever. That is the number of the elements that you want out of that. You can just see it on the code. If you just go ahead and run this, G is, let me just change it to red. Next we can say blue, and then we can say black. Now we can say the L, that is the list, equals random dot choices of G. Now we can give the weights equal to a list. We can go and give that further. Once we just give k equals 10, we want 10 values, and of course we want this to print out L. If I run this, it's giving me 10 random values picked out of that function: red, blue, and black. Blue, and if I run this again, there's a different set of values being printed. And as you can see, this is happening. Now sometimes we want one element of the list to be coming lesser, or let's say the odds of that element being popped up in the list have to be less. So there is where we can give some weights. VEIGHT ace equals, and we can give it a bracket. I have to give a comma. Now the number of elements you give inside the weights should be equal to the number of elements of the list that you want to pick up values from. Now let's say I want the odds of red to be 10, whereas I want the other blue to be 10 also, but I want that black should be coming, or let's say appearing, lesser than these two colors. So what if I run this? Now as you can see, the black color is coming like really less. The whole list is full of red colors. Now there's a very little chance that black can come. Here you can see everything is just blue and red. And by chance, if a black comes, that's your luck. And that is basically how online games like mm, when you spin a wheel, let's say a wheel which gives you prizes. Let's say there are three prizes you can win: a t-shirt, a phone, or a laptop. Now the odds of the t-shirt are 100, the odds of a phone are 10, and the odds of a laptop are 2. That means the laptop can be appeared, but like the laptop can be popped out of that list, but there's a very little chance of that happening. So that is how we can just control how like what are the odds, or how how many times that object can happen. Now the sample thing is a little bit different, so right now we can just focus on shuffle. Now let's say you have a deck which has 52 cards, and that we have to shuffle the deck. Let's say we have to just shuffle. Go ahead, let's shuffle that deck, and let's see what happens. Right now we can say deck equals to list. This is the function that converts anything into a list. We can give something as a range, uh, list range, and give it from 1 to 53. Now why 53? Because 53 is not inclusive, so this list will contain everything from 1 to 52. So we can just say print the deck. Let's see what the deck is right now and what is it after we shuffle it. So it's from 1 all the way to 52. Now that is the deck right now that we have. Now we have to shuffle the deck. What do we do? So what we can do is we can just put this line of code that says random dot shuffle, and we can give the parameter as deck. So we can just say random dot shuffle, and we can say the argument as deck. And now we can just print deck. Each and every value is mixed, so the total number of elements in this list is 52 because there are a total of 52, but the places of the elements are changed. You can see it starts with 11, 22, 19, 7, and it goes on like that. Can This is how basically we can make a solitaire game. What that is you can make card games using this. If you want to shuffle the card, the deck, I mean, if you just have to shuffle the deck, and if this particular number is at the start, you want to give it to the next person, and then you just deal the cards, and that is how it works. Now here what the problem is that mhm, in the shuffle thing, we have got something like it just mixes all the values, and then it just gives it. Now what if I want some random values out of that deck? Let's say I want just 5 values out of the deck. I just want 5 cards out of the deck. If you are visualizing it, then you might say cards. If we're just seeing it as a code, then it's just 5 values. Better you visualize it. If I want that 5 cards from the deck, you say why not just use the choice or choices method, right? Why don't you use the choice method, or let's say the choices, or any of these? Now what the unique ability of this sample function is that it can take unique values out of the deck. That means the number that is once taken can't be repeated. Okay, so this just for extra information, you need not memorize anything like something out of that. So basically what we write is hand equals random dot sample of deck, and the values that is k equals any value you want. Now let's just say we have the deck as it is. Let's say we have the hand as random dot sample of deck, and the k equals 10 right here, and I want to print the hand. That means how many cards are there in your hand. If you're visualizing it, then the dealer just shuffles the cards, and that can be done using the shuffle function, and then he can just deal the cards. And if you're one of the players, then your hand can be, I don't have that much information about cards or something like hands, something like that. So it will give you unique value each time, and the total number of elements is 10. That is what we made sure that happens. Now every time I refresh it, it gives me different values, and that is basically how sample works. It gives you unique values each and every time. Now enough of the random function and the random module. Let's just refresh it, whatever we learned. Random.random, any float value between 0 and 1. Random.uniform, any float value between the given two arguments. Random.randint, any integer between the x and y values that are the arguments given by the programmer or the coder. Random of choice, getting a element out of the list, a list that is specified. Random dot choices, getting anything, like getting, like it is basically the same as choices, but here you can just define the weights. Here you can just go choice, get one choice out of that list. Here you can just give. Now here it can come in a string form. Here if we define the weights, and if we want, it can just like appear in the list. Here is the random.shuffle function that just mixes all the values of the list inside the list, and the number of elements will remain the same. Here's the sample. The unique thing about this is that it gives like no element or no value is repeated. End of the PPT. Now let's apply random in our code, that is in our game. Now where can we apply this, you would say? Just tell you where can we apply this. We covered this speaking shop, we covered everything. Two functions, good. Now yeah, okay. Now below these things, today we're gonna be filling these lists with the balls, the real things. Let's say what we're gonna fill these lists with are the balls. Now how can I say that? So you can just visualize. There is a list inside of which there are many values. Now here you don't have values, we have balls, and those balls are drawn onto the screen using the draw function of the ball class. Here we have the draw ball function. We'll be using that one to draw the ball at random positions, and we'll be using random.randint function for doing that, and that is what's gonna happen. So first we can say you must have learned for loop, right? For loop, for I in range, or let's say for I in a list, for j for whatever variable. We're gonna use the same thing here. For I in range, here we can give the number of balls you want inside your class. So right now I say 30, not 30, maybe, yeah, 30. We want to fill that particular list with 30 balls of that color. For I in range 30. Okay, good. Next is here we define an object. This is a variable. Make sure you just get the difference. This is when we define a class that is with capital B. We have defined the class with a capital B, and it's a good practice to name the class starting with a capital letter. Now here, ball here is a variable. It's too confusing, right? So let's keep it just B. Okay, B equals to ball. We're gonna create an object of that class of ball. Okay, B equals to a ball, and we're gonna give some values inside of this. Now let's go ahead and see what values do we need. We need the ball color first of all, and we need the x and the y values of the ball, and that will be defined here. Ball. Now the color I want is red, because we're doing this for the red balls. And after that I give a comma, I give integer of random. I just understood random dot rand int. The values I want to give here is 50, 50, and 860. Why so? Because these are the values that I first of all, when I just started making this game, I gave any random values, then I saw how the balls appear, then I using trial and error I just changed the values 100 times, not 100 times but still many times, and then these are the perfect values that I got if you're using a 900 by 900 window. Now one thing you might miss in here is make sure you use this import statement, that is import random. If you don't use this statement, the code will give out an error for sure, because without importing, you are using the functions of the random module, and that is not possible. So here, random.randint out of this. Now this is the x value. Now we can do the same for the y value, integer of random.randint. You can just give the same value as 860. And now we just made the object, that is we just made the particular ball. Now we have to add this into the list of red balls. Now that can be done using a function dot called append, and you might have learned that also because it was taught in the Python camp. If you don't know, no need to worry, you can just go ahead and write this function, that is red balls dot append is the function. We can say b. Now, what will this thing do is for iron range 30, that is for 30 times, it will create different balls, or let's say the things that the user is going to catch, and this will add it into the red balls list. Now, just to make sure that these things are really there, what I will do right here is I'll just print the red balls. Now, before we run this, let me make it short. It will not be shown on the screen but on the console, and it will not be shown in a ball. Let's just make that clear by saying here. Okay, let's move the screen aside. Here we can see the list, that is the red box list, and here is main ball object at this particular uh, values. So this is of course not understandable by humans. We want it on the screen. So how do we do that? Now basically we can do that with another function, and that will be discussed in the next session. And what I want here is just this thing. Let me just run it. I've been talking for so long. Just remove this red balls function. Now I can just go ahead, copy this, paste this, paste this, paste this, paste this, and paste this. For 6 times. Now instead of red balls here, we can change the color of it, and we can say green. Okay? And instead of red balls dot append, we can say green balls dot append. Okay, just like so. If we can change the red thing to whatever color you want. Let's say blue. Blue is the color that we selected. Blue, instead of this red box, we can say blue box. Here we go. The same, we can say orange. And we can say orange box. Just make sure the indentation is correct, else you'll get hundreds of errors. And you'll maybe understand, maybe you won't understand those errors. Gray, and we can say gray box. And here is the red. Instead of this, we can just write pink. And we can change this to pink box. Now each of these lists have 30 balls inside them, and those are some visualized ball. Now we want them on the screen, right? We can just go ahead and say, okay, there are balls inside this. So now let's just summarize what we've learned today. We'll just literally, oh, we didn't close this. Did we? Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. So what did we learn today is we defined these two functions that were very important, the don't leave function and the show function, the random module, the seven random module functions. Next, our challenge is to put those balls onto the screen, and that will be done in the next session. And before you go, the next session is the last session of this project, and after that we'll be starting a new project that is a quiz. And that's basically it here for today. What you're gonna learn is the use of the math library, some of the functions of the math library. You're gonna see the collision between the ball, the player, and the balls. You're gonna see the balls on the screen, and that's gonna be very exciting. And we'll just make sure that the game is over once the user collects all the balls. And there's a lot to be done tomorrow, not tomorrow, next week. So make sure you attend this lecture next week, and we'll be completing this game, and then we'll be starting with the new project. So thank you everyone for attending today's lecture. It was nice to record the two. Get out of here. Get out of here. Should I? Boom. Just pause it. My internet was maybe fine. I think is it over? Or I just think it is then because we're on the time, right? So let me just real quick. We can say okay, we can end this thing.